Hi guys. Okay, so today we're going to be making candied pecans. So it could be considered either an appetizer or a dessert. Probably fits better into the appetizer category because it's more of a finger food, something that you would pick up and just kind of like eat, to kind of get ready to eat a meal. So I would personally rather make these than buy them because you can buy them. They're just like cinnamon sugar pecans. If you looked in the store, you could find them like that. So when you go to make them, you're going to buy a bag of pecan halves. We need a pound. And this recipe is actually really easy. So I'm going to start by mixing my cinnamon and sugar together in my bowl. So I'm going to measure out a cup of white sugar, also called granulated sugar. Okay, just the plain white sugar that you would get at the store. And I'm going to put this into a smaller bowl because all that's going to go in this one is just my sugar and my cinnamon. Okay, so there's my cup of white sugar. Move this around so you guys can see it better. I'm going to take my cinnamon and I need a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Oh, I forgot one thing. We're going to need some salt too. This is actually going to get a teaspoon of salt as well. You don't want it to be too sweet. So adding the salt in there helps you get that sweet and salty mix that is really good. Um, and these are just fresh pecan halves. They haven't been roasted. There's no salt on them. They're just plain. You get them in the baking aisle usually, because that's where they're going to sell the plain ones. If you want ones that are flavored, you'd have to go into the snack aisle somewhere, depending on the store that you're in. Okay, there's my salt. Just going to give it a quick whisk. Make sure everything's mixed evenly together. And then in my larger bowl, I am going to be separating my egg white from my egg yolk. We're just going to be using the egg white in this. I'm going to put a little bit of water in there, and then I'm going to add my pecan halves. Let's move this stuff out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so if you have never separated an egg white from an egg yolk before, it's pretty simple. You're just going to crack it in half and then go back and forth. The egg white is going to come off while the yolk stays in the shell as you go back and forth. Some people even put the egg in their hand and then just kind of move it around. The yolk stays in your hand. If you're gentle, it doesn't break. And the egg white kind of just drips off of your fingers. Okay, so that looks like I got all my egg white there. Just gonna wash my hands. Okay, so now I need a tablespoon of water. Make sure you use cold water because remember you have an egg white in there now. Use hot water, it might start to cook your egg white and you don't want that. I'm gonna get my whisk back out. You want to whisk it till it gets frothy. So I'll show you guys what that's gonna look like. Notice how I'm holding the bowl on an angle. It makes it easier to whisk. It gets all of my liquid ingredients into 1/4 so that I don't have to work as hard. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what this looks like now. It's nice and frothy. So I'm going to take my pecan halves. Actually, I'm going to get my kitchen scale because the recipe calls for 16 ounces. but the way that they sold the bags were in 10 ounces. So I want to make sure that I'm being accurate. So I have my kitchen scale. You guys can see. First I put the bowl on it, and then I'm going to turn it on, and that just zeroes out the bowl, so it thinks that there's nothing there. Okay, so I have my scale at 0 right now. That's what you call tearing your scale. So it's teared out. And there's exactly 10 ounces. I'm going to add 6 more. And these are really nice bags because they just seal back up after you're done using them. There's a zipper seal on them. So what do you do if you don't have a kitchen scale? Well, one bag's 10 ounces. So you would use a bag and then just a little bit more, than half of another bag. And that would be your 16 ounces. And if it's not perfect, oh well. Okay, that's good. So now that that's done, I am going to take my pecans and I'm just going to mix them in with my egg white mixture to fully coat the pecans. So you might be wondering, why do we even need the egg whites? There's a couple reasons. The egg whites are going to help the cinnamon and sugar mixture stick to the pecans better. Another thing that egg whites do when you put them in the oven is it kind of gives a nice finishing texture on the outside of whatever you're making. So if you're making bread and you brushed egg whites on there, like an egg wash like we just made, which is egg whites and water, if you put an egg wash on there, it helps give it a nice gold brown color and almost like a crunch. Okay, so it's going to help it become more crunchy rather than being soft on the outside. So that's exactly what we want to do. Okay, so we're just going to toss this around in here until you see that your pecans are coated in the egg white mixture. So they should all look kind of wet. And if they don't, you're not done mixing. But you want to be careful too, because you want to try not to break up your pecans, because remember, this is something people are going to be eating, with their hands, and they don't want to have to eat little crumbs of pecans. Okay, so now I'm going to take my cinnamon sugar mixture and I'm going to pour it over my pecans. Toss it again. Gently. Notice how I'm scooping underneath the pecans and then I'm rotating up. I'm not mixing. So this is almost like folding them in, right? This is what we would call folding in here. Okay, so they're all pretty evenly coated. They smell delicious. So I have my oven preheated to 250. I turned it on before I even started making this. And I'm just going to put my pecan halves on my baking sheet. I'm going to spread them out so that they're in a single layer. This would actually be a really good Christmas gift too. If you want to make somebody something, somebody that likes pecans and sweet things, we really enjoy this. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to put these in the oven at 250, and they're going to go in for about an hour. Every 10 minutes or so, you're going to take them out, kind of toss them around a little bit because you don't want them to burn in there. And that's another reason why it's at 250. If you had it at 350, they would start to burn. The sugar would start to burn on the outside of the pecans. So you need to be careful about that. Okay, so to stick these in the oven, take care of them. That's it. So simple, easy appetizer recipe or Christmas food gift that you could give someone. Doesn't take a lot of time or money, but it's a really nice, thoughtful gift. Okay, so I hope you guys try one of the appetizers that I show you or find your own.